All right, welcome back. We are diving into chapters 5 through 8 of the basic 8 chapters that you recommend here. So we
Yeah.
talk about chapters 1 through 4 in the last short episode. Chapter 5, you're recommending that we talk about the formula in action. I love this because you're kind of putting hands and feet on whatever formula or framework you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, Give us some insights into how can we think about this in this chapter, and what kinds of things should we include if we want to help people to put this formula in action.
Well, pull out a sheet of paper or open a new document in Word, right? However you're going to write it, get a piece of junk mail and write on the back of an envelope and just say, okay, if I'm going to write about encouraging someone in chapter 1, how am I going to encourage them? In chapter 2, who are people that I know that have gotten results that I've worked with? So if you're a coach, they would be coaching clients. If they're people that have hired you to speak and you're teaching someone how to be a speaker, go get some testimonials, go talk to some people who have become speakers and started with speaking for free and now are getting paid. Whatever your process is, you want to go find people who have gone through the process and they've come out the other side and they're like, woohoo,
Okay.
right? They hit through, they're in stage 5, right? They got their 2 thumbs up, their gold star, and maybe a couple of bucks, right? And they can talk about it. And then you talk about what's going to happen when someone tries to create your results. They're going to have internal resistance. They're probably going to have people tell them that they can't do it. Right. So all those things, they need to figure out what their stages are and what their process is and talk about that. And just make some notes. Just ask yourself the question, how does this apply to what it is that I want to write
Okay.
in my book? Right. So it's always like, you know, what's the encouragement I need to give? How can I write about that? Who can I write about? Who can I write about that's gone through the process? What are my stages, or what is my process, or what's my word? Right? What's my word that goes here? How do I write about this in here? And I want to circle back to giving people permission to changing it. So
Hmm.
remind me if I forget. And then talk about what it looked like when you did this yourself. Like, apply what you're telling people to do to your story. Like, tell your story in there, or show people what to do based on what you did. Show them what you did or tell them what you did, and then say, like, you can do this, which would be chapter 6. It's like, okay, now you can become a speaker. Now you can
Hmm.
create your one sheet. Now you can get a speaking agent, or you can reach out to associations and learn how to speak. So I want people to kind of pull out a piece of paper and go, okay, so how does this apply to what I'm trying to do in the world? What am I doing? And how can I write about these in these chapters? And so I can keep going. We haven't talked about 6, 7, and 8 yet, but chapter 6 is letting the words flow. Like, how do
Hmm.
you get out of your way and get the words on paper? Chapter 7 is, how do you write your first book? This was kind of my favorite part, was like, how do I help people to write their first nonfiction book like I wrote my 50th nonfiction book, knowing what I
Yeah.
know? What are the things that they need to know so that they can professionally publish a fantastic book that's really going to serve them? What do I wish I knew in my first book that I know now, dozens of books later? And then chapter 8 is kind of like, okay, now this is your call to action. So in this book, it's like, now go write your first nonfiction book now, as in right now. Go do it. Right. So in your chapter 8, or whatever that looks like, what is it that you're calling them to do? It's the call to action. Like, now that you finish reading this book, this wasn't a book that you read once and you put it to the side and went, oh, whew, thank goodness this is over. I can log it in Goodreads as another book on the way to my book reading goal for the year. But I'm actually going to take action. I'm actually going to go put it into practice.
One of the things that I like about your process here is that you emphasize many times through this book that this process is uh, you got to personalize it to you. So you're not saying that it's
Right.
you've only got to have 8 chapters and it always has to be that exact number. Because in various books of yours, you follow this, but it's a little bit different every time. So let's say
Yeah.
if you had a framework that has 4 elements to it, is it okay to have 12 chapters and 4 of those chapters are going to be you're breaking down each of those 4 steps
Right.
in more detail, and then you just kind of have to you're taking this process and you're changing it up according to your personality and your style. for the
and
book,
what
and that's
makes
okay.
sense for your content and what
Yeah.
makes sense for your content. And that goes to word count. I mean, this book
Mhm.
is a better business book, which is a product that I created to
Yeah.
help people to become authors, right? So there's a product that I sell that's a better business book, and it's 15,000 words, 100 pages, 4.2 by 7 in dimensions, right? It's called the Better Business
Mhm.
Book. This book happens to be that same size, a few more words. So there's about 21,000 words. But this isn't meant to be a small book formula. This is meant to be a book formula, a book
Yeah.
process. You
Yeah.
could do 8 chapters and write 80,000 words. And so then you break that down. If it's 15,000 words, your word count per chapter is different than if it's 80,000 words or 50,000 words. It's math, right? It's all math. So, and I'm not a math person, I'm a writer, but I can do basic math. And so it's not about making it perfect, it's making it perfect for you. It's making it
Yeah.
so that it works for you.
Now, before I move on to this, to the final episode in this, one thing that I am curious about is, I've had a lot of conversations with people about book sizes and book length. So, for example, in my Daily Writer Club group, which people who listen to this show have heard me talk about that before, of course. We had a conversation yesterday about this, and actually, there were only 4 of us on this call. It's the summertime. It's, we don't always have large attendance on some of these sort of off calls. But 2 of us, Karen Hunsinger and I, had this, your new book. We had copies of this. The other 2 people on the call each had your previous book that you came out. That's the same size, and I thought
Uh-huh.
it was so funny. And I said, I've asked everybody on the call, what do you guys think about the idea that these books are? I just describe them as kind of a cute little book. It because the size of it, the physical size, makes you want to pick it up and take it with you. So, what are your thoughts on that for people who are especially working on the first nonfiction book? Do you think there is something psychologically important about having a book that has a small footprint? It's a small size. It's a shorter book. There's something about that that seems to make people want to grab that book and take it with them.
I think there's so many questions in that question, Kent, because I think that people want to do it right. And so they
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I thought a book had to be big. I thought a book had to be
Right.
thick. I thought a
Right.
book had to be 6 by 9, 6 inches by 9 inches. I thought it had to be 200 to 300 pages. Wait a minute, what is this?" And also, psychologically, from a reader perspective, the book does encourage you to read it because you think,
Yes.
it's only so big. How long can it take me to read it? I
Yeah.
can read this in a short period of time. I can fit this in my pocket or
Yes.
pocketbook, purse,
Which is what you intended, right?
which is exactly what I intended when I came up with the size originally. It was for my first book. I was working with professionals, the majority of them men who wore suits, and they didn't have anywhere to put a book. And so I measured the
Mm.
inside suit jacket pocket and found a book size that would fit right in there perfectly. And that's how that all started. When I wrote the best-selling book formula and chose to do that compact size, it was because the manuscript was about 15,000 words. And
Mm.
I knew that to get words on the spine, it had to be 100 pages. And the only way to get to 100 pages
Yeah.
was to shrink the size of the book. And so one thing led to the next. And then the response has been very positive. Oh, I can read a book like this is helpful, right? If you just tell me what I need to know, you don't need 200 or 300 pages unless it's complex. You can keep it short.
Yeah.
And now people are saying, I can write a book this size. It's still a book. You still check the author box. You don't have to go through years and frustration and writer's block and all the things, right? You can write and publish your book in a relatively short period of time, keeping it a palatable size for both author and reader.
So all things being equal, it's good to have a book that people physically want to pick up and take with them, and that they feel they can read fast.
Well, all things being equal, that can be really helpful and beneficial. But I'm going to take the contrary position just for a second and say, if you need more pages, if you
Have
need
more pages.
if you need more words, have more words. If you need a bigger size, have a bigger size. The best-selling book formula is 15,000 words. write your first nonfiction book is 21,000 words. So it was bordering on, with a little bit of customization, it could have been a 6 by 9 or a five and a
Mhm.
half by 8.5 book, right? I could have put in some big pages with quotes. And I'm a huge fan of Jeffrey Gitomer. I'm going to hold this up.
Yeah.
This is about 21,000 words. But if you look at, some of the pages, there's, probably 20 words on this one page. And this is a 6 by 9 book.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic
fun to look at.
book and fun to look at. It just depends. And that's where I think law schools everywhere should be sending me money, is because I say, I'm going to give you the lawyer answer all the time. It
Yeah.
depends. And, a lot of lawyers say that I should, there's a royalty payment in there somewhere.
Somewhere. Well, I hope that we can get it for you somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know a few attorneys and you do as well, so
Yes.
maybe it'll come to you at some point.
Yes.
Well, this has been fun. I'm gonna wrap up this episode. This is so helpful, and I hope this is inspiring people to take action on this as well as just get the book and give it away to all their friends too, because all their friends need it. Everybody needs this book. It's great.
Right. I think
So
you're right.
I'll see you in the next and final episode of this series.